this computer. Okay, so welcome to Faith and Calm. This is class number 190. Oh, I'm sorry, 240. 240. 240. And we are going to this Thursday, we're going to enter the month of Tavis, which is the 10th month of the year. Then there comes 11th, 9th month of the year, 9th month of the year, actually. Then there's no, we are in Tavis. We're going to enter Shvat, the 10th month of the year. There's other, and then there's Pesach. So the big holiday that happens in Shvat, other than Tu B'Shvat, is the 10th of Shvat. What is the 10th of Shvat? The 10th of Shvat is the day that the Rebbe became the Rebbe, and he became the Rebbe by saying a mimer, a Hasidic discourse. So a little bit of the history there. He said the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe passed away on the 10th of Shvat the year before. That would be in 1950. And for a year, there was no leader of the Chabad Hasidim, and people were wondering what it's going to be. And the Rebbe, on the first anniversary, he had been refusing violently. He says, I don't want the job. And if you keep offering it to me, I'm going to run away with my wife and you'll never find me again. So he was serious. He wasn't just saying that to be fun. So, but his wife managed to convince him that the Chabad movement needed him. And we don't really know all the reasons why, but he assumed the leadership. And he began to explain this Hasidic discourse that his father had given on the last day of his life. It was printed, and it was supposed to be released and published on that day. And the Rebbe viewed this as a tzavah, as a will and testimony, a description of what the mission statement of our generation is. And it has 20 chapters in it. And we didn't know this, but the Rebbe each year took and examined one of those chapters in depth and explained what was really the import of why this is something revolutionary and life-changing for ourselves and for the entire generation and for the time in history that we live in. And then he continued again the next 20 years, the next 18 years. So he almost finished 2 complete cycles, 40 years, and of the mimer, on the mimer. And this mimer basically describes, in a nutshell, just speaking just in general, it says, what is life about? Why are we here in this world? What are we supposed to be doing? And how do we do it? And why are there so many challenges and physical challenges and tragedies and traumas and pain and suffering? And what the value of that is and how important every single individual is to that mission. And if you want anything else that propels Chabad throughout the world, this is it. They connect to this because the Rebbe basically gave us our marching orders. What are we supposed to be doing? And created an army. And this is our mission. And it's very empowering to know what your mission is. Every business needs a mission statement. But most people don't know what they're doing with their life. What am I supposed to be doing? Why am I here? And what am I supposed to accomplish with my life? Why am I, am I just getting by and surviving, doing the best I can, and hopefully without, not too much difficulties. There's nothing wrong with that, but it's lacking something. And once you hear this, then you understand that there's something tremendously. We are in a very special period of time. We are the final generation before the coming of Moshiach, and to understand what that all is about. So that is what the Rebbe says in general. So what is he telling us? He's telling us that we are in a battle to actually, but this is not a battle, good versus bad. This is a battle to ultimately, when you have a battle, the real point of the battle is that ultimately God's mission and plan for this world should be accomplished, and we are the foot soldiers who actually get it done. Officers don't get it done. The king doesn't get it done. The people who actually have to do it is us, you and me, and we may think we're very small players in this, But you know what? In an army, it's that one little person at the right time, at the right place, that actually wins the entire battle. And that is what we are. And so we might think that, we have a very small role, but actually it is the crucial role. Each one of us is doing one piece in this particular war. So the mimer begins and it explains and it says, to give you some historical context, that when God created the world, excuse me, he had a plan. He wanted to make this a Garden of Eden. And he did. And it was for a short period of time. It worked. It was wonderful. Everything was nice. Everything was working right. There was no problems. There was no sickness. There was no struggles with earning a living. And then Adam and his wife messed up. And they made some mistakes. And they caused a disalignment between this physical world and what it was supposed to be. And God, so to say, had to be removed one level up to the first heaven. And then each successive generation created more problems, more idolatry. And he moved up to the second heaven, the third heaven, until finally, after the flood, he was in the seventh heaven, completely removed from this world. And it took until Avraham Avinu to start bringing godliness back into this world. From the seventh heaven to the sixth, his son Yitzchak moved it back to the fifth, and each successive generation until Moses is the seventh generation from Avram Avinu, finally gave us the ability to bring it back down into this world, and that happens when we got the Torah, and especially when we built the temple. Why is that? Why is the temple so much the symbol of changing this world? Because the goal is not just to get back to Gan Eden. God left, he came back, nothing was accomplished. When you suffer, when you go through difficulties, and when you are able and you live through life, then we actually do something that is actually more profound than everything was perfect to begin with. When it was perfect to begin with, that's no special thing. God can, of course, make everything perfect to begin with at the beginning. But to be able to fuse a physical world which is definitely atheistic and antagonistic to godliness, and sometimes just doesn't care, and is just thrilled in doing all sorts of heinous and terrible crimes and against humanity, murdering and slaughtering and raping and whatever and so forth. And that's Emily and her mother.
I know, that's why I'm looking closely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. And when we do that, we actually help God do something he can't, so to speak, can't do himself. And that is, we bring godliness into a world which is not necessarily godly. God can only make things godly. We bring godliness into this world. We actually transform it. So our mission here is actually to transform this physical world, not just to take it and to deny it, or some people want to do just to move, go into some ashram or some monastery or on a mountaintop or something like that and meditate. And the spirituality is still incompatible with the physical world. Our mission is, bizarrely enough, to fuse together and take mundane, simple physical acts like going to the hospital and taking care of yourself and washing your clothes and taking care of somebody else, doing good, kind deeds. We actually bring godliness into this world. We make this world no longer just a physical world. We make this world also a spiritual world, and we bring some spiritual love and perfection into this world. And that's what we do when we do these acts of kindness, and we actually make somebody else comfortable, and we do something to make their life more pleasant. And every little act like that is another brick building the temple. And that is what God said when he said, make the temple. He didn't mean just make a temple in Jerusalem. The actual command, if you look at it carefully in the Torah, it says, I want you to make a temple and I will dwell in you, not in it, in you. He wants each of us, in effect, to become a miniature Beit HaMikdash, a miniature sanctuary for Hashem, where godliness is perceived, where you can see that this is not just a person, it's also a person acting in a godly way. And every act that we do, therefore, becomes a little oasis of godliness. And the more we do this, it's more like a nuclear reaction. It's not a chemical reaction. Chemical reactions, you have to have a certain amount of chemical and another chemical to go together. Nuclear it's a chain reaction. You touch one person, you touch another person, and it causes a chain reaction, and it causes the entire world to change. So each act that we do, each little thing that we do, transforms the world. And that is really one of the main initial themes of the Basi Lagani is that, yes, there is a lot of what they call shtus in this world. What is shtus? Folly. And we are to take that folly and to transform it and turn it into something holy. Shtus in Yiddish means basically, well, they translated as folly. I don't know if it actually captures it. It's basically, you ever do anything, and then 5 minutes later you think, how could I ever been so foolish to actually do that sort of thing? And it's not just ourselves personally, but we see kids act that way. They get something into their head, and they get, and they get a crazy idea, and they just, go after it. And it's not very logical. It's lower than logic. It's lower than what would make sense. And yet you do it anyway, and then you wonder why you did it and so forth. Well, that was part of the chain reaction that was set off in Gan Eden when Adam and Hava started their problem. Actually, I'll tell you a little secret here. There is a medrash that says that after they ate of the fruit in the Garden of Eden, Adam saw God, and he said, God, you wrote a Torah, and the Torah was written before the creation of the world, 2,000 years before the creation of the world. And in that Torah, it says that it talks about what happens if a person dies. Now, if the original plan was nobody was ever supposed to die, how can you have had this in your blueprint for the world before we even did anything wrong? And the rabbi said, yeah, it was all a plot. God actually wanted give us the opportunity to mess up, because only through messing up and only through failing and only through making stupid mistakes, those mistakes are not the right path. But by transforming them, we actually are able to do something that even the greatest tzaddik who never sins does. We can actually turn the negative thing into something positive, because the negative thing helps us realize how far away we are, and that actually drives us to get closer to Hashem. So it actually becomes an impetus. If it becomes the impetus and the energy for doing good things, then it is a good thing itself. So we actually turn negative things into positive things. That is the deeper meaning of what it means that the temple was made out of atzei shitim, shtus wood. We have to make the temple actually out of the folly out of our follies and out of our stupidities. And that becomes the temple of God. So we take something that is stupid and it's leaning too much to this side, and we turn it straight up by going a little bit too much towards the side of holiness, and that balances things out, and then it becomes a beam sticking up. And that is what the temple is made out of. And that becomes the dwelling place of God. By recognizing that, we aren't always in the right. And that's okay, because we have this voice inside of who is watching and looking over us and saying, after you did it, it didn't bring you along pleasure. You had a lot of fun with doing it, but then it left you sort of empty and so forth. Maybe next time you should understand that, there's only things that have permanent good. Doing kindness, doing things for other people, that gives you a permanent sense of accomplishment. That's because there's a godly soul in us, and it responds to this. So that is who we are, and that is our mission. And then the Rebbe continues and says, and then the people who I need you to do this are my foot soldiers. And he brings an example that's very interesting. He says, there are kings who fight battles. And there are two kinds of battles a king tries to fight. There's the kind of battle that a king fights to accomplish and to get more booty and spoil. But that, since it's only in the material world, and it's only trying to get something more and expand the borders of the country, then it's a limited, calculated war. But ultimately, the king wants that everything that he be a king, and that means that everything has to happen according to the rule of the king. If a king cannot give a command and other people can overrule him, and he's not really a king. So the ultimate battle in the king, he puts everything on the line because it's the nature of kingship that wants its kingship to be a true kingship. So he takes his treasures that he has never ever revealed before, that he keeps like in the crown in the British museum. They have the crown jewels, and they keep them under lock and key. And he actually takes those and he spends them and he uses them to help his soldiers win the battle. He splurges his money, and that is on the spiritual level what God is doing right now. This is the end of the seventh generation of Chabad rabbis. It's related to the seventh generation after Moses. That this is actually the ultimate time where we're going to finally turn the corner and win the final battle. And therefore, the king is putting tremendous obstacles in this world. There are tremendous battles. There's tremendous stupidity. You just have to look at the news at night and realize how off the wall it is, and so forth, and how much they're even embarrassed themselves. How much they can't even hide anymore. And ultimately, this is the battle that we are fighting here. Is that we're actually fighting the battle of truth and reality, because that's what God is truth and reality, and they have to align, and it has to come out. And therefore, we are those foot soldiers on that battlefield. And God is taking treasures and not giving it to his officers, but only so that we can actually win the battle. So next week, I will continue and I'll explain a little bit more about the wonderful treasures that God is giving us right now, the abilities to accomplish things beyond what we would normally think of as a simple person, and to be able to actually transform our lives and to accomplish this final war. Now I'll turn it over to Shalom Shahudis.
Thank you.
Okay. She's going to have a good story for you.
Okay.
Thank you, Yasmin.
Thank you.
Oh, a second. It's so interesting. Haskell Shimon put on this blurring of the background, and this little
Yes.
and can you see the little blue thing behind?
Yeah.
Yes, I saw it behind him too.
It's so funny. It's 10 feet away from him. Everything else is blurred. It is my Moshiach tambourine. Is that funny? It breaks through. It just won't stay. It won't stay subdued.
That's funny.
That is so funny. Okay, so does anybody have any questions before I begin?
No.
Okay, so I'll start with the four things that I always start with. Number one, we're in an extraordinary time. You don't have to be. Everybody will agree that. I was Googling the internet looking for an image to advertise the class, and the title that Haskell Shimon came up with, or whatever, is "Why Are Times So Crazy Now?" And there's millions of things. Everybody agrees times are very crazy right now. But the Rebbe explained that it's not just crazy; it is crazy with a purpose. And he explained that we are in the unfolding of the redemption, and we know that sages hundreds, if not thousands, of years ago told us that the stage right at the opening of the redemption, the redemption of the Jews and the whole world from chaos, that it would be a very tumultuous time. And many sages prayed that they should not be alive at that time because it's going to be tumultuous. But anyway, it is a good thing, and God willing, we're going to see good. So we're in the opening of the Geula. Number two, we have our souls. Everybody listening here, everybody in the world, was handpicked to be here at this particular time, because not for no reason, but because we each have a vital role to play in this drama. And number three, we have all the tools we need. We have the mitzvahs, which are our power tools, and we have the Torah, which is our guidebook. And the Torah is an amazing thing. It saves you from every single situation. I had two incredibly trying situations this week, and I just had to ask myself, Shalom Asudas, what should you do right now? And I told myself, be humble. You can't figure this out. You don't know why this happened, but but I'm sorry. I trust Hashem. I trust the Torah. I trust it all. And Baruch Hashem, it's resolving. But sometimes sometimes the secret ingredient is humility. When you've learned enough Torah, you gain a certain trust in it. You gain a certain trust in Hashem, and it's a lifesaver. It can be a lifesaver. So the last thing is that yeah, whatever. I said it already that we are that that by learning about no, actually this part I didn't say that by learning about the redemption, we are actively expediting it. The Rebbe said there's nothing that brings the Geula faster than learning about it. So so I just want to tell a little story. You know, when I was little, I used to watch things like the Jetsons and the Flintstones and all that kind of stuff. And Jetsons had all these magnificent things that were going on. We live in a still more remarkable time than the Jetsons. We have something called Igros Kodesh. We have something called the Rebbe's Letters. And never before in human history was there such a thing that an ordinary, a relatively ordinary person, Jew and non-Jew, could open up a book of a sage's writings and boom, get an incredibly explicit answer back. Sometimes the answers are not so explicit, but the answer is always there. So I'm going to tell a story that I just read, and it's sort of like a local story. It's a story about this rabbi. His name is Lazer Gurkov, and the Gurkovs are huge in Boston. The Rabbi Gurkov. First of all, the Lubavitcher Rebbe called Rabbi Gurkov. I think he said what. It's quoted either one of two ways. Either he said, "I have one chassid in the world, and that's Lazer. That's Moshe Gurkov," or he said, "I have two," and Moshe Gurkov was one of them. Moshe Gurkov, the father, founded Shayla House, and I owe him a tremendous amount because Shayla House is a big, big, big part of my life. I've been teaching there for 22 years or so, and it brings light to my eyes every day. And but anyway. I'm close to him. The father just passed away, Rabbi Moshe Gurkov. His wife is I learned with her almost every week for 4 years. She helped me start learning the Rebbe's writings in Hebrew, and my skills improved dramatically after that. And thank God. And she's a marvelous person. I benefited very much from spending time with her. She should live and be well. Anyway, their son, Lazer, this story happened to him. Lazer happens to be a rabbi, and he has a Chabad house in Canada. And he has he had somebody who would come to his Chabad house named Larry. And one day Larry calls up Rabbi Gurkov, Rabbi Lazer Gurkov, and he said, Rabbi, I'm calling to say goodbye. And the rabbi said, "What do you mean goodbye? Are you leaving the community? What's going on?" And he said, "No." He said, "I came back from the doctors and they came up with a diagnosis for me, and they're sure about it. And only 15 people in the world have this condition. There's only 15 people in the world, and pretty much everybody who's diagnosed with this condition dies within 6 weeks of being diagnosed. I'm sure there are many people who die without being diagnosed. They die and they don't know what it's from. But people who in whom the disease is caught and they diagnose it do not live past 6 weeks. So it was pretty devastating information. Rabbi Gurkov, of course, went to visit him in person and tried to encourage him. But it was really pretty overwhelming for Rabbi Gurkov also, because this man, Larry, his wife had passed away not too long ago, and they had small children. What is that family going to do? So anyway, he did. Rabbi Gurkov did whatever he could do to encourage Larry. And one day Larry called him up and he said, my doctors are really urging me to do this thing. It's a brand new treatment that they came up with, and it's never been done before. and I would be the first person in the world that they're going to do it on. And I guess they probably were telling him, what do you have to lose? You only have 6 weeks left, so or less than 6 weeks. And he said, I don't know what to do, Rabbi. And so Rabbi Gurkov, I don't know, whatever. So Rabbi Gurkov said, he told him about the concept of igrot or igros kodesh, that he said, we have, even though we can't see the Rebbe now, we can write to him and we can get amazing answers. And such things it's not a novelty. These things have been done for hundreds and hundreds of years. That Jewish people, it says that a person, if in a dilemma, can open up any holy book, any holy Jewish book, and take direction from what's written on the page. And I've given the example before. A very big rabbi, oh golly, his name was going to escape me. Oh well, but anyway, he was in Europe. He went through the Holocaust, and after the Holocaust, he couldn't decide if he should come to America or if he should go to Israel. And so he opened up Aaron Cutler. His name was Aaron Cutler, and he decided, I'm going to open up the Chumash. I'm going to open up the Torah, and should I go to Israel or should I go to America? And he opened up the volume of he opened up the volume of a volume of the Torah, and it was just a couple. He opened to he opened to must have been the Parsha of Shmot, if you want to say it in Israeli Hebrew. And he opened it up, and it said, Hashem is talking to Aaron. This guy's name, the rabbi who opened the Torah, his name was Aaron too. And in the Torah, Hashem was talking to Aaron, the brother of Moshe, and he said, "You should join your brother Moshe in the desert." And this Aaron Cutler knew immediately exactly what it meant. He had a colleague who was like a brother to him, whose name was Moshe, and he was already in America. And back then, America was called a desert of Torah. So he knew exactly what to do. He went to America and he founded the largest yeshiva in the world, Lakewood. And Lakewood is history. It's not history. It's so enormous. It's unbelievable. Anyway, so he told him, we can open up a volume of the Rebbe's writings and take direction from there. And Larry was interested, and so Larry wrote out a letter, but the rabbi had to take it back to his house because he had the volumes of the Rebbe's writings in his house, not in Larry's house. And as he was going home, he was very nervous because he had suggested probably that people in the past write through Igros, but this was absolutely life and death. And so before he left Larry's house, he said, "Listen, Larry, we're going to write to the Rebbe, but you're not going to use this as your only source of information. You're going to combine what you read and whatever letter we get from the Rebbe, you're going to combine that with whatever the doctors say. You're not going to use it as your sole piece of information." So he went home and he was extremely nervous, the rabbi. Am I going to get an answer that says anything that's going to, he was very nervous. I guess he didn't. Okay. He was very nervous and he opened it up. And it was an absolutely extraordinary letter that they opened to. He opened to a letter that said, Rabbi Kirk was a little bit in shock even. The letter said, "Don't use new untested treatments do not use new untested treatments." The Rebbe was writing the letter years ago, not today, years ago, but it was totally pertinent. Do not use new untested treatments unless the main doctor can explain the whole philosophy to two other very reputable doctors, and then all three have to agree that it's the perfect thing for you. Otherwise, stay away from it. Stick to normal, normal preventative treatments. Stick to the norm. So, anyway, Larry ended up not having the treatments, and he lived. he was diagnosed in early winter. He lived until Purim, and then from Purim he lived until Pesach, and he had a seder with Rabbi Gurkov, and then and time just kept going on and on and on, and he was doing okay. Then he was hospitalized for an entirely different condition, and and they discovered that he has in addition to the other problem, he has an extremely rare blood condition, extremely rare. And he told the doctors about what happened to him before and the procedure that they were going to do to him. And the doctors said, "Woof, good, you didn't do it. It would have killed you right away." And so he called up Rabbi Gurkov to tell him, and I'm going to read it. He said, Rabbi Gurkov says, "Larry said something to me that I will never forget. Larry said, 'Rabbi, you need to believe more in your Rebbe.' He said to me, looking at me right in the eye, 'You told me to treat the Rebbe's advice as one idea, but I should and combine it with what the doctors say. But I made it the only thing that I listened to, and that's what saved me. The doctor said my life would be finished if I had followed the advice of the doctors to do the novel treatment.'" Anyway, Larry ended up living 10 more years. And he started changing. He started doing more Jewish things. He started putting on tefillin, and he had a lot more health problems during that time. But Rabbi Gurkov said he learned a lot from this guy, because when this guy would have a problem, he'd go up to a picture of the Rebbe. He'd go up to the picture of the Rebbe. He'd look at the picture and he'd say, "Rebbe, this isn't okay. You're a tzaddik, and you can do something about this. Rebbe, please help me." And it was just so straightforward. And anyway, so his faith in the Rebbe was, in many ways, stronger than some rabbis. So anyway, I just want to say that yeah. I wrote, I write to the Rebbe all the time. It's very hard to show a book, very hard to get a book in focus in this. Okay, I can't do that. But I was having a problem that was two problems, so extremely vexing. And last night for some, I usually fall asleep very easily. Last night I couldn't fall asleep. And I got up and I thought, okay, you didn't have time to do it today. You're going to write to the Rebbe. And I didn't even look at the letter yet. But today is already a different day. It's a completely different day than yesterday and the day before. And I'm sure that my calm and also good things happened today in regard to in regard to the two problems that I had. So anyway, it's an amazing channel for blessing. And I'm going to stop here. And if anybody has any questions, I'm going to stop the recording. And if anybody has any questions, I'd love to